It is Wednesday, November 12th. The time is now 3:33 p.m. I call to order the Special Call Committee of the Whole Administration and Government Affairs Committee meeting. And councilors, thank you all so much, and the audience, for joining us this afternoon. We do have our agenda, which is in front of you, and hopefully you've had a time to look at it. We do have two items that we had previously discussed that we would have as part of our agenda today. I would like to draw your attention to approval of the minutes, and we do have those added to the agenda today, and these were the minutes from September 30th, 2025.
I move for approval of the minutes.
All those in favor, please say aye. All right, those minutes are approved. Thank you very much. Next item is, we did have a request about a mid-year review and just looking at some of our financials. And Mayor Whitman and his team had given us the opportunity to have that review done today. I know you sent us some items, Chief, that were to be a part of that. And so if it's okay, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, Madam President, I think the mayor wanted to be here for that part. He's still in pension board
Okay.
meeting. So if we can just take it out of order, so you can do the urban alchemy, that'll be fine.
That'd be great.
That'll give him some time.
We'll go ahead and do that because it
Thank
would be important to have everyone present.
Just,
so we-
and for clarification, it's not a mid-year review,
Yes.
it's just a review of all our
But
finances.
finances review, right? We'll be sure that's noted on the agenda. All right, so at this time, we also have on our agenda a presentation regarding the work that we're doing as regards to Birmingham Oasis and the work that is planned to be provided by Urban Alchemy. And so, Chief, if you'll go ahead and give us that individual who's making that presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We'll bring up Ms. Elena Melton, who serves as our Director of In-House.
Thank you. And as she comes forward, councilors, you do have that packet in front of you. Hello, Ms. Elena, how are you?
I'm well and yourself, Madam President and members of the council. I'm Elena Melton. I serve as Director of Special Projects in the Mayor's Office. And before you, as was mentioned, you have the annual report for this last year with Birmingham Heart. We also have some members of that leadership team joining us via WebEx. I know that they're on the line, so if we have any questions about that, you also have just pictures of what the Oasis in other cities look like. And then we met and revised the budget based on some of the questions that we had, particularly around the tech information. So while we're waiting on them, I think it's worth noting, the biggest things to note in this report is that over this past year, Urban Alchemy has responded to over 3,000 requests for assistance for folks experiencing homelessness or in mental health distress. And so you'll see a breakdown of all of those different types of engagements, who was involved. And I think one thing we failed to mention that's really worth noting is that the primary reason we engaged with Urban Alchemy in the beginning with this HEART contract was to decrease the number of calls that our police and fire were having to respond to as it related to people experiencing homelessness. So fortunately, since we've had them, this 3,000 plus number represents 3,000 calls that they didn't have to take. Of course, if the situation called for it, it became an emergency, Urban Alchemy is well connected with our police department, and they call them when they need to. But they are trained and been able to de-escalate a lot of situations and get some people help in real time and alleviate some stress off our businesses. So I don't know if we have them up yet to answer any questions about the report.
Hi, Kim, do we have, there they are. They're on the screen.
Okay. So I think if you guys have questions for us about the report or what we're planning to do.
All right, councilors, at this time, do you have any questions regarding this particular item? And did they have a presentation for us, or they're just here to answer questions?
They've prepared the report, and we can either go through or take
I
your
think
whatever
that would be
questions you have.
helpful if they'll go ahead and go through the report for us, and then that will give us an opportunity to listen and then entertain questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bayron, can you guys hear us?
Yes.
The question was, are we to go through some of the information on the report?
Okay, no, you guys have the report?
What's the question? Do we have the report? Yes.
So I think maybe we just want to clarify, is the report that you're asking us to speak to, is that the report for the heart, or are you talking about
Yes.
the racist?
The heart. The HART report, the comprehensive report.
Sorry, I don't think we have it handy, but if you can maybe give us a moment, we might be able to get that. Unless you want to email it to us real quick, that would be super helpful.
I can begin. So the real data begins on page 9 in the report, and it talks about the number of incidents that I've spoken to. And then there's a summary, just a breakdown of the reasons of engagement. And as you can see, the largest number in the pink is for PEH, so persons with lived experience, persons experiencing homelessness is the largest cause. And then they go all the way down to the smallest, being a business owner actually calling and saying that's from things like loitering or somebody's blocking an entrance. And then the other chart shows resolved reasons and how it was resolved. And the largest one has been relationship building, which, as you could imagine, our police officers just don't really have time to do when they're responsible largely for enforcement. The next sheet, page 11, goes into the types of calls that we've had. Again, most of those are for people experiencing homelessness. The request for transportation, which has also been really unique about this contract, because folks, a lot of times we're called out to encampments in the past, we haven't had a means of transporting people, and Urban Alchemy does have transportation. They have the ability to take people to get help, to mental health services and the like, particularly JBS. Sometimes it's the hospital or whatever that type of transportation need. The biggest asset I think we as a city has seen is doing the warming stations. So the police department drop off folks at the warming station, but Urban Alchemy has been extremely instrumental in helping getting people off the street on the coldest nights. And then we go down to wellness checks, we know this person lives here or they're on this corner and we haven't seen them. They're not moving, are they well, is everything okay? A resident called and said, I'm concerned for my neighbor on the sidewalk, or things to that nature. And then mental health concerns, loitering, complaints in general, trespassing, suspicious activity, and then business-related and engagement outside of folks experiencing homelessness. The little box to the right talks about the number resolved. So of the 1028, 719 were resolved, 122 were canceled, 94 gone out on arrival. Outside of scope was 78, which means situations that may have to be turned over to a different organization. And then you can see there are fewer engagements that require EMS or some other agency. Should I continue? Okay. Page 12, the type of services. I do know that last time there were a lot of questions about the wraparound services. I think it's important to note that the staffing numbers are small for each of these sites because Urban Alchemy partners with other agencies largely for the wraparound services. So that's how they've also been successful being boots on the ground and being good neighbors with other homeless service providers. There's a very long list of the type of service calls and the type of engagement. I won't read all of those, but that explains some of the wraparound services that folks received. And then on page 13.
Ms. Lane,
Yes,
Ms. Lane, can I chime in here?
Sure.
I appreciate that. First, we're prepared to talk about the actual other report, so I apologize. Let me just got me personal great job. I'm not gonna get a shout out. You do a great job. But one thing, one of the things that we just talked about, which is really wraparound services. And I'm out of here, this is the first way to segue into not only are they going to be wraparound services, it's wraparound services for heart. I want to get a system response team that already done a phenomenal job. This is also when it seems some of these wraparound services, as well as the comprehensive report that you'll see at the OASIS as well, which one of the key things is And of course, she put reference to earlier on there. So I think that what we expect when we get there is the time to get there to complete something is extremely complicated to some. But to us, the fact that we can get to the yes, the fact that we can actually find out what exactly is needed and how we can best support this. And if you see this here, we have a 51% completion rate, which is again, that goes getting there, with response time, which is extremely high. But also one that we can do better with. I think we can probably, knowing how we have a better relationship, we can probably get that completion rate over 60%, given the fact that we now have really strong relationship with the community members. I'll go to page 15. Certified on service request. And here you would see some of the actual requests itself. You look to the far left, it's color-coded, right? I'm going to get down straight into actually the service, the social service activities, which is provided with our schools, which I mentioned here, referring to care coordination, which I mentioned is the second one. And these are some of the things that I'm excited about to the far left, because those activities, we will see at Oasis as well. How we can care coordinate one Oasis, you go to the rest of Oasis. You know, you're talking about getting the person in experience homelessness. Those are some of the things that we really have to work towards. And it's all based on relationships. So again, referring not only just providing water and coffee, but that they can be also to a snack for someone who has to eat in a couple of days. But also referring to where we can talk about referring to a care coordinator. And that care coordinator is that first point of contact when you're talking about wraparound services and working in the new things that they may have. So again, that's really important to a comprehensive report. And I suggest you want to mention anything there, AG, before we go to part into the types of questions.
Basically, that's the main ultimate thing that makes the relationship, like we spoke about the last meeting, is that in order to get the guests that's out there, especially homelessness, to buy into the process, because that's the issue is getting them to accept the invitation, to accept the resources that we're connecting them to. And all the things that we're using as like a prop to get them to buy into the process is very essential.
Yeah, I'll just speak to the quick needs assessment. So one week there, like we also do referrals for organ injury assessments. We also do a quick needs assessment where we sit with someone or meet with someone via heart, and this will translate to Oasis as well. My care coordination meets with individuals who are homelessness. There's a quick needs assessment to see what their kind of immediate needs are now, and to assess their current state of homelessness, place of origin, last place of whether they're inside, and that kind of goes back to what they were talking about as far as back and exit conversion. Sometimes we're able to leverage resources to get folks back home if they're not, if they don't originate from Birmingham, or if they have family somewhere else that's going to receive them to resolve their homelessness faster. All right, perfect. Now we're going to which I'm happy about. The heart is the type of resolution. If you look here
Thank you very much. We're ready for questions. Did you have anything to add? All right, thank you. Counselors, we've heard this report and received some additional information that I think may be helpful with some of the questions we'd had during our recent council meeting. So any questions? Yes, Dr. Quinn?
Okay. Sorry. I'm having trouble remembering the scope of work in the contract between Urban Alchemy and the city. If I'm looking at the report, they are, basically functioning as a engagement team with people experiencing homelessness, identifying who those individuals are, building a relationship, making sure that their immediate needs are being attended to, which is part of the relationship and trust building. What I'm wondering though is that, is Urban Alchemy, I think ideally, we know there's always gonna be people who just want to live outside. That's a given, but that's a subset of, the roughly 1,000 people who are experiencing homelessness at any given time, in the city of Birmingham. So I'm wondering if in the scope of work between the city and Urban Alchemy in that contract, where are we trying to, who's responsible for getting these people housed? Essentially, that's what I'm trying to say. And so I didn't see any information in the data provided about Urban Alchemy, moving a person from living on the street to living in some sort of, supportive housing situation.
Madam President,
Yes, Mayor. Yes, Mayor Woodfin.
to your colleague's question, Dr. O'Quinn and Ms. Melton will dive deeper into the contract with you, but at a high level, that's not Hart's responsibility. It is to work with them on a continuum, but in isolation, it's their responsibility. The answer is no. I believe it's our collective responsibility. December 1st, I believe, 3 Mondays from now, there's actually a homelessness summit that you all will be invited to if you haven't been given that information. I understand you have by the head nod, you have been given that information. But we put all service providers in a room to talk about on the continuum what's everybody's role to get to the ideal space of the realistic goal of reducing homelessness, chronic homelessness, and getting people to the point of what's on the continuum from being on the street to emergency housing to short-term to loan. That is part of the conversation that we will discuss Monday where we all show up. But related to this contract, I can't say that's in isolation for Hart's responsibility. You want to add deeper what's in that contract?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Whitfield. Councilor O'Quinn, you actually outlined the contract perfectly. What you said is exactly what the contract is designed to do. And so to the direct answer to your question, housing per se is not, it is one of the things that they can do, and I'm really proud to say that we've been fortunate that they have been able to do some housing, not really permanent supportive, because there's a number of like 1,000 permanent supportive beds that we just don't have in the city. But fortunately, through some of this relationship building, they have been able to get people to go into emergency shelter. We do know people are very excited about other housing options that are coming online, and Urban Alchemy is beginning to have those conversations. Also, to your point about people not wanting to be housed, we've worked extensively with One Roof, the Continuum of Care, and if they were here, I think they would largely say they are the agency responsible for housing. As we all know, even that's challenged, but the three agencies, the city, One Roof, and Urban Alchemy, we've been working really well together to create a robust plan that you will hear on the first, but I will say One Roof and Urban Alchemy have been working really well on HMIS to track people and get them successfully housed. So the resources are largely the part of the contract, but where they can get people housed, where houses are available, if folks want to go, they do go. And I will say our research says that 80% of the folks surveyed in encampments in Birmingham proper actually do want housing.
Okay, just as a follow-up, one other thing that would be helpful for me, I think, and everybody, just to understand, you know, what homelessness looks like as an issue for the city of Birmingham is to kind of know where this is happening. So, you know, if there was like a map where we could see, like a heat map, you know, to say, okay, this is where we're responding to calls about this issue. When I tell people, you know, talk to people about this issue, I'm like, yeah, you may see it in one location, but it's really everywhere. And, you know, part of me wants to have some information to like actually validate that statement.
Madam President,
So anyway,
I think
Yes.
we can assist with that. I think the data will show that this issue literally exists in all 9 districts. This is citywide. Not in all 99 neighborhoods, definitely in all 9 districts.
And we are working on a heat map actually that will help you see in your districts and neighborhoods. PEP is working and we hope to have something that we can demo on the 1st.
Okay. Thank you, councilors. I do want to direct your attention. We did receive an email on November 6th that had RSVP and information regarding the state of homelessness, redefining the community. And that meeting, as Mayor Woodfin has said, that summit will take place on December 1st. So be sure to follow up with that RSVP. Is that all your questions, Dr. Quinn? For now, okay. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Smitherman?
Yes, I also don't see, I guess, the areas of town you have serviced the most. While it is in all 9 districts, there are certain parts of town that are more heavily populated than others.
It's gonna be central business district, which is District 5, and then it'll be District 6, if there was an order, which includes 5 Points South area.
That's interesting, because I think the business owners will probably differ. Okay. That's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Williams?
Thank you. I have a few questions. One is, Mayor, the summit. Is the summit to present plans or to invite all of the folks that we work with in this ecosystem to kind of say what's working, what's not working? Is it like a town hall
It's
format?
actually a little bit of all of that. We
Okay.
do have a roadmap we would like to present to the entire public, to you. Of course, your information will be shared with you prior to the meeting. But to the general public, as well as to service providers, as well as to those experiencing homelessness and any other organizations and or people. An actual roadmap, plan, if you would. We've been able to kind of dust off all the things that have existed prior and synthesize and put all those things together and assess where we've been able to make some dents in this issue and then how some have grown to a point where we got to look at it differently. So as we approach this, it's literally a little bit of everything you just said. It gives you a little bit of town hall, there'll be Q&A. It gives you what we want to present, how to move forward and address this issue with an actual roadmap, if you would. And then I forgot the second thing you said. I got the first and third.
Well, I mean, so it's like a public town hall kind of thing. Here's my reason for asking that. You know, one thing is the referral to shelter for the entire period through September shows that there were only 4, if I'm reading page 15 correct, 4 referrals to an actual shelter. And then one thing that I was approached by 2 members of that ecosystem that run nonprofits that are all that everyone in this room would know, you know, came with me with concerns and said, thank you for speaking up because we're not sure what they're doing in this space. We know what we're doing. And I think that part of that might be part of that, and I think you used an acronym. It was HMIS. And is that the tracking
The Homeless Management Information System.
Yeah,
Before-
and so
Go ahead, keep going, I'm sorry.
I believe, okay, so I believe that today's item is about this one space. Is that correct?
It's both. There was a notion of giving an overview, update in detail, what they've done, separate from the, I guess quarterly, is it quarterly or monthly?
It was asked for the entire year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we wanted to provide the yearly, and then as it relates to all of those items related to the opioid funding that you all were kind enough without committee to let all of those pass. This one, you wanted more conversation. So this is part of that as well.
Okay, so with the HMIS, will there be that type of record keeping at the Oasis?
Before she answers that, you had 2 more points, and she will answer that question, or they can answer it more in detail, because they heard you. You mentioned that other organizations don't know what they do. Well, here's what we find in every situation: education, workforce, housing, economic development, and yes, in this situation of homelessness, nobody knows what nobody does, because everybody's siloed. Everybody's head is down in their own lane with their own organization, doing their thing. What the city is doing here, December 1st, is not just about heart. It's about our collective approach, so everybody knows what everybody's doing and how we show up. Now, that's not a one-time thing, and there's a significant amount of more information that needs to be shared. But I want to acknowledge the point you made where 2 organizations have approached you saying they don't know what they do. We can tell you from all the information we collected, no one knows what anybody else is doing. They only know what they're doing.
Fair enough.
So-
And the question around the summit was, if it's a town hall, okay. But I was hoping it was gonna be something
Way deeper.
where leader, like us that have to vote on this would be in the room with all the organizations and their leadership, where that they could actually explain what's going on. But I mean, a public town hall, we've been, anyway. So HMIS, do they have to document an HMIS?
Urban Alchemy,
Yes.
they don't have to, but they elected to. They signed on, they trained all their staffs to be able to use it. None of the other street outreach teams in the entire city, except for one roof, was using HMIS before Urban Alchemy came along. So they're the only 2 street outreach teams that we have that actually do report in HMIS. They also keep records on each one of these calls that mirrors our 311 process. So any call that was closed and we had questions about it, we're able to pull that information and get the same kinds of information we could get in a 311 request.
Okay.
There was another point you made, I remember now. You were noting the number of referrals, and I think it's intimated that number seemed low, and that's a fair, thing to jump out.
For the whole year.
Yeah, I think one of the things I find, and I've been around a significant amount of time, is that in this space of our unhoused residents, it takes a long time to build trust. Significant runway. And I will tell you, I get calls, I go out to a site, I go out to an individual, I see an individual and I stop and or pull over. And 9 out of 10 times, if not 9.999 out of 10 times, they deny any help. They deny, and as Mayor of Birmingham, they deny me. And so I think sometimes they go back and try to engage the same person. They're not there anymore. Or the second time they talk to them, they still refuse. Counselors, I'll just be honest with you all. This work is not easy. And to get to a point of referral, that means this person trusts you enough to walk with you to assistance. But there's a significant amount of distrust, mistrust, or whatever word we want to use to get to a point where people unhoused feel comfortable enough to speak to anyone, including Hart, where by definition it's a total stranger walking up to them. And even though they may have a shirt that say on it, doesn't mean they're going to open up to them. So they're denied a lot. Maybe that's something they can hear me. They should start also keep tabs of if it's not in here. And it probably is, but just saying it out loud, document the amount of refusals you receive as well.
Okay, so getting back to my HMIS question. You said that they opted in. where did they opt in? Are they opting in contractually at the Oasis?
So no, that's not how HMIS works. It's the entire homeless database for an entire, like it's tied into the state. So if you've experienced homelessness anywhere in the state, so that lives with the continuum of care. So you can't opt in unless you've been trained and purchased a license through the continuum of care. So they were trained and have ongoing training and with One Roof. So anywhere their trained staff is, HMIS can be also. So at the Oasis, when they have a call, usually if you see them on a call, they have a tablet and they have the ability to track that interaction into HMIS, which serves a lot of reasons.
Okay, so it's not, they have some folks that are trained in it, but it's not going to be the practice at the Oasis for each individual that shows up to be entered into that database.
If an individual would like to start the process for housing, then they could be entered at the Oasis into HMIS. The individual does have the right to say, I don't want to start the housing process. I do not want to do the intake process. But HMIS, anywhere that an urban alchemy practitioner who's been trained with HMIS, now that they've purchased a license within Jefferson County and they've been trained, they can have 1,000 Oasis and they can have HMIS on the site.
So, I guess my point is that I would like to see that, there be the ability to enter them in HMIS, because my understanding from people in this ecosystem is that they are required to enter folks into HMIS. And maybe that's based on funding that they receive, and maybe some of that comes through ADECA or other state agencies, but.
It would depend on where that person is interacting in the continuum. If I showed up at a shelter, I immediately entered into HMIS. It's the street outreach team having HMIS access that's not common.
Got it, okay. So that goes to my questions about the HEART program. And we spent a lot of funding on it, and the interactions just look a little slim.
To the park,
Do what?
park.
Heart.
Heart
Heart.
program.
HEART.
May
I
I
think
say
that's the
one
name
thing
of
about
it.
SLIM too? The mayor's point is well made. It's important to note when I said earlier that we have surveyed folks in encampments and we're preparing to do it once more. One Roof's survey took in count everybody who was unsheltered in the county. So we're preparing to do one only on the encampments that we know in Birmingham, and it'll be One Roof and Urban Alchemy. But of the 80% of people who said, yes, I want housing, all of them single-handedly said, I don't want shelter. And so not to overly politicize, but when you see 4, some of that is, to the mayor's point, is a refusal, because we're seeing across the nation that the emergency shelter model does not work. Most people who've been just as impacted are domestic violence victims, and that's a lot of our folks who's experiencing homelessness, do not want to go into emergency shelter where they feel institutionalized, which is why some of the things that you'll hear on the first, other forms of housing, which are largely popular all over the nation, will be important that we start to bring it to Birmingham.
What do you mean things we hear on the first? Or have we not been told about something we're gonna do?
To the mayor's point,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's not what she
We're,
said.
we're still working out, the agenda's not fully fleshed out. We have a skinny of it. But we want to make sure from an information standpoint, we detail out what we are presenting. That information will be shared with the council prior to.
Okay.
And I didn't mean city of Birmingham. There will be multiple agencies, a part of the ecosystem, that will be there and able to present their work. We're working to break the silos and share what everybody's doing. I wasn't referring only to our efforts.
Okay, I got it. So on the item of the Oasis, my understanding is that we're using $600,000 of opioid money, according to last week's agenda.
Correct.
And so I cannot figure out how that this is a legal use of opioid money if we're not creating an open-air drug market.
So it's the same as the other organizations that you green-lighted who have physical spaces. They just happen to be covered. I thought we we talked about this in another setting, and our answer is the same. You have, I forgot the number of other organizations the council approved. How many was it?
5.
There's 5 other organizations that receive opioid funding. They all have physical spaces that happen to have roofs on it and doors. This space does not have a roof or doors open as it relates to, but something will be created in the space that contains it, just like the other spaces are contained. And so it's no different than the other 5.
Well, you know, in the other setting, it kind of confirmed my suspicion that this was an open air drug market. And the reason why is because you're right, that the other places that we approved are physical spaces that do have a roof and that do control.
With staff, with technology, which this place will have staff, FTEs, technology.
But there are controls in which they control that there is not drug use there.
This will be controlled.
But I was told that there is no expectation of no drug use. That people can come that are experiencing, that are on opioids.
Yes, just
And
like
that
the
are
other 5
providing
places.
Narcan.
But no, that's literally the other 5 places where people are experiencing drugs that can come to receive help and get off drugs. It's no different.
But the other 5 places had a way that they could receive help. I'm not understanding how they're receiving help. We're talking about providing them Cokes and chips and Narcan.
Can whoever here, can you all, on the call, please explain how the Oasis site will be managed? Intake, et cetera, or the easy flow of people, how many people will be there, et cetera. Can you please explain to the council?
I should take, go ahead, Cecil. Yes, thank you all, thank you for the questions, Councilmember. So Oasis, that will be a space to welcome all, but will not be condoning drug use or distribution or any of that sort. There will be Narcan, as well as literature about fentanyl awareness, because we're aware of anywhere that we're able to kind of receive folks and have folks be. We try to empower with as much information as possible, as long as information on the rehousing process, which we talked about. There'll be a care coordinator on site to work with folks to be ready when they're ready to have those conversations about the rehousing process. What it looks like is folks are able to come in and be control gates, so folks will check in at the gate with the staff, speak to any particular resource that they are there to look for, even if it's just simply recipe coffee, as you heard Ron talk about. Provide a space for folks to, sit down, not lay down. It's a big part of the Oasis as well, as we do ask people to sit up. It's not a place where folks can necessarily lay down and make kind of like a day shelter kind of setting. We're looking for a trauma-informed, heart-lit setting for anybody in the community, but specifically for men and women experiencing homelessness to say services, engage proactively in different behaviors. What we've done and some of our other Oasis is have invite other service providers. People come in and set up a table. It could be for any kind of rehousing opportunity. It could be for clothing opportunity. It could be for any kind of resourceful opportunity to help folks kind of reintegrate. And one of our Oasis, we've had a barber come in and support folks with haircuts and kind of different grooming and different things to help reinstill dignity and a sense of humanity. To be recognized. And what you start to see over time is that folks let their guard down, comfort in the space, and folks are ready to have some vulnerable conversations with care coordinators and or case managers. That's care coordinators for urban alchemy and or case managers, other service providers, other entities, other entities that are doing this work in Birmingham. We'll have to really partner with those other agencies to come in as well to provide that. And this space kind of gives that sanctioned space. Now there are some kind of community guidelines that we will negotiate and have conversations around. And we found that if you have those conversations with respect and dignity and see people for who they are and what this space is here to support, that we can have those conversations around drug use, and folks tend to respect the space, and then also start to have some conversations around the resources of substance use disorder treatment that folks might be looking to engage. I know there's kind of a lot there. I don't know if there's any more color you want to add.
I'll add some color to it. Yeah, I would just, look, Counselor, I don't want to discredit your point. I think we've worked long enough to know when you're making a point, like, you want to know something is or is not. I want to reiterate, this is not that. This space is needed. That's one. It's needed. I think we have a situation in pretty much all urban cores in America, but believe it or not, it exists in rural America as well. And I'm excluding suburbia and exurbia here. Housed and unhoused people will choose a place to hang out. I think in certain situations for us, those who are housed, we tend to hang out by the water cooler at work, or we hang out in parks, or we hang out at lounges and bars and socially, but we hang out. We have our spaces where we go post up. But if they're outside, it's usually a park maybe. What we find is two things exist. Our unhoused residents have certain areas they hang out. Prior to all the development around the Switch District, you had not one, but two shelters in that footprint. And that has always been a space beyond the shelters where unhoused residents hang. Literally from 17th Street all the way down to 12th. Actually, that is not true. Pretty much all the way down to before the Platinum. So at least 6 blocks, literally where unhoused residents hang. But I told you two things happen, which is housed residents are literally blending in and hanging out with them as well. Meaning, people who actually have shelter, who are housed, go kick it, stand on the corner, hang as well. And when the sun sets or when it's time to come home, they go home. There are a lot of times we can't tell the difference between a housed and unhoused person. And I'm just using that 2nd Avenue corridor and those 5-6 blocks as an example, actually more than 5 or 6. But that is probably the prime example of not being able to separate who's housed and who's unhoused and just hanging out. One of the things we found, and they know this better than we do, that in other cities, Oasis work. People can hang on city right away, and by law, if they're not doing anything illegal, we can't prevent them from hanging. Or you can actually create a safe place where there's dignity and people feel welcome, and you can find a way to build the trust to get them the services because everybody's hanging out, and we can start to transition people from being unhoused. Either way it goes, we do this or don't do this, people will hang out. We think this is a very sweet spot to not only create a safe space for people to gather, but also be literally in the best position. And when I say the best position to provide resources, to get them to the ultimate goal, which is to be housed. There are other layers that come with that, getting beyond drug addiction, those who may have family problems, those who need a license or a non-driver's ID to get a part of their application to get a job. You name it. All of this will be able to take place in one place where people know, even if I'm unhoused, this is a place for me. And I won't be harassed or kicked off the curb just because I'm standing here. Or others have gathered and they're causing ruckus. Now I'm pushed out. This won't be an open air drug market because we're not going to allow it.
Well, out of all of the questions and responses I've gotten, that last sentence does answer my question, and that there's no intent that that is not the intent of this project or space or whatever we want to call it. So, it's clear that I'm not for this. I think I have problems with so many aspects of it. And I think that on the face of how we help people that are experiencing addiction or homelessness, whichever one, probably more so a combination of the two since we're talking about opioid funds is appropriate. I think things like this have an unintended cruel consequence because it prolongs them being allowed to live this life of addiction, and it doesn't seek, they don't actually get the help that they need. The stats that we were presented today and the guardrails that we have set up at this site for only $600,000, to me, does not show that we're going, I'm sorry, what?
Somebody needs to leave. That's just feedback.
Does not, to me, you know, I want the same things of an end result. And I think that the answer to it is legitimate wraparound services. And I don't think that we should have, you know, we talk about people on the curbs. I have been, one thing that I notice that is more emboldened and brazen than ever, and we talk about people that are housed and unhoused, hanging out, are hand-to-hand drug transactions. On Diaper Row, at Red Mountain Expressway, it's hard not to see. In the Switch District, it's hard not to visibly see. Under the interstate by St. Vincent, or Red Mountain Expressway, under St. Vincent's, it's impossible not to see. Blatant hand-to-hand drug transactions. And I think that, you know, I see that, you know, we're probably going to all, this will probably pass. And there probably is a carrot in this that you can go hang out and get free food on the taxpayer. But there has got to be an enforcement component as well. I can't go to a public park and openly use drugs. I can't go to a public park and expose myself or whatever, I'll have adult relationships with people in a public park, which is a huge problem right now. There has to be enforcement, so we're, you know, just because you're unhoused doesn't mean that that's okay either. So that is a concern. But anyway, that is all the questions I have, Madam President.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Madam President, I just want to piggyback kind of what off Council Williams has talked about. I understand the stats of the HEART program, but it just feels like it's not working. And it's not a knock to the administration, but you know, when I have business owners telling me there are homeless people, you know, doing crack in front of the window of their business, or a person comes into their restaurant and pees in the chair, or they know like there is drug dealing going on, like it just feels like I'm with Counselor Williams. Like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Like, I talked to two unhoused residents Saturday, you know, just talking to them because I've seen them on the corner for months. And I was like, why aren't you in a shelter? And I don't know why they told me the shelters were full, but that's another instance where we see the same types of unhoused residents, and it doesn't seem like anything is being done. And so we have to answer to our residents, our business owners, about homelessness. So I would hope to see also with the Homelessness Summit about enforcement. We need help. And we're not talking about, because I feel like there are two categories. There are the unhoused residents who are literally like, probably like us, just we're all one paycheck away from being unhoused. And then there are the others who are on drugs and cause terror and who assault people. Like, we have multiple stories of people being assaulted, like even our own police officers and CAPS workers. So I just want to make sure when we give funding to organizations like this, it's working, because it doesn't feel like, I may not be the only one feeling like this, but it doesn't feel like it's working. Like, something has to be done.
Madam President,
Mayor?
to Councilor Smitherman's concern, Councilor Hunter's concern, Councilor Voss's concern, because he's been getting the calls already. Councilor Gunn's concerns. Of Avenue I in Arkadelphia, Councilor Smith's concerns. Parkway, Highway 11, Council Wood's concerns. And literally, if I had the time, I can touch point with every single one of you. I'm gonna honor that and give you enforcement. Now, it's going to require more than BPD. It's gonna require the courts, it's gonna require the psych wards and UAB hospital and everybody else to collectively wrap our arms around after the arrest is made, what happens. Because as a former prosecutor who practiced for a year at the city jail, seeing homeless people be arrested over and over for the same charge, PIs, public intoxication, public lewdness, disorderly conduct, and there was one more. These guys had records that literally, this is one record. It looked like this, same cases over and over. We find ourselves in a position that is going to require more than arrest. This is one of those situations that we won't be able to arrest our way out of from an enforcement standpoint. That on the back end, post the arrest, the resources, the wraparound resources are still needed because the person will get back out. Because most of these are city violations that max 30 days. They will come back out into the community. The question is, when they come back out, where are they going to go? Most of them go back to the same spaces in the world we've seen up front. And so I've seen it literally from the perspective of the prosecutor post the arrest, and I've seen it in the case being mayor, and I've seen it as a resident of Central City, where it's going to require more than the city government, which is why I think this roadmap is so important. But in my conversations around enforcement, there has been an uptick engagement. Captain North Precinct and South Precincts mainly. We're bringing in West and East based on what we've seen in some of the other areas I've named, such as the Parkway, Highway 11, Arkadelphia exit by, not just the exit, but by Birmingham Southern, Avenue I, and other areas. I'm just naming 1 and 8 as an examples. I know they're in 4. I know they're in other portions of 3. Actually, I know they're in North Birmingham as well, in other areas. And when I say they, unhoused residents. We're trying to do a couple of things where it's not just enforcement and arrest, but post-arrest, what happens on the continuum versus this person's coming back and the officer's arresting them 14 days later or 21 days later or 30 days later because they're never going to, some of our unhoused residents won't necessarily comply with a court's order if they plead guilty and or found guilty.
Madam President, ma'am.
Yes, Councilor Smithman.
So I'm not saying arrest people because we're both lawyers. I don't like to have people arrested because I know, what's the name of the park by Dreamland? I forgot. Yeah, so there was an incident, I think it got resolved where the police were telling me they were arresting, same example you gave, arresting the same homeless person. They would be there 24, 48 hours, they'd get back. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the wraparound services. I just want to make sure like they're working. I'm not saying they're not working, but I want to see a change.
Okay.
You know, and also there's a difference in panhandlers versus unhoused residents on the street. We all, like I drive around city too. There are panhandlers, you know, you drive your car, you say, no, I'm not gonna give you money, and then go off. Or they may step out, but we're talking about people where I'm in 5 Point South and people are telling me they don't feel safe there. And honestly, I can't blame them. Like at first, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of like, oh, maybe they were just, but no, like I've been in 5 Point South more recently. Like they definitely are there. And so that's what I mean by wraparound services. But also, Mr. Mayor, how can we work with psych wards? Well, I know you've seen that. I've seen people unhoused residents in hospital gowns. Like they just kind of release them. I've seen reports of vans. I don't know where the vans are coming from, where they drop off. I'm sure you've heard about it, but like, what do we do? Like, what's the, I know you don't have an answer, but I'm just saying these are the questions and the things that we're dealing with.
I think the roadmap is important. Let's be honest about the moment. We can't put all this on heart. They're the newbies in town. All the other organizations.
But they're getting a lot of money though.
Yeah, we do. But they are honoring what's in the contract we've agreed to. What I mean, though, is that they are one tool in a big toolbox of how we address this issue. And as it relates to their lane, we would never even recommend to you the Oasis if we didn't think what they're currently doing is working. Is it new? Yes. Can they build upon it? Absolutely. Will they continue to improve? Without a doubt. Will we hold them accountable? Absolutely, because you're my co-accountability partners. This is one tool. This is one. But we do believe it is an important tool as it relates to all the other partners in the ecosystem of addressing unhoused residents in our community. Imagine, if you would, the strain that would be on BPD if every call had to go to them that was not criminal in nature related to unhoused, which are majority of the calls. Yes, there is trespass and public lewdness and public intoxication and disorderly conduct, but those are not the majority of what the calls and interactions are about. That's not true. Majority of the calls are not criminal in nature. So I think we have to make that distinction for the ones that are criminal in nature, have BPD engage. We encourage people when it is in violation of our city ordinance, when it is criminal in nature, like you've shared with me, that information flows directly to a captain, lieutenant, or shift sergeant to make sure beat officers respond. 5 Points South, Central Business District, or any area you see activity or your small business owners to call 911 when it is criminal in nature.
And, I heard the murmurs about firehouse, et cetera, sorry. Yeah, it's just a little bit, you'll be okay. But that's also feel like, and I think, I don't know who's over homeless, but I think, Counselors Gunn and Smith, I do believe they'll have a good job where we can put everybody in the room, like what Council Williams suggested, and ask them, what are you doing? Like, what kind of material can I give somebody unhoused if I see them on the street? So I'm not just talking about them, was it the Heart Organization, but they are on the agenda today. But, I also acknowledge in downtown, even though that's not my district, my small business is still there. I see a different type of unhoused resident, the one you're talking about where, I literally say, hey, how you doing? They don't bother me, nothing else like that. But also there's, where are we doing those? Like I see the same unhoused residents off of 2nd Avenue North all the time. So it was a rant, but I'm just saying, we just need some more direction and help with homelessness. That's all I'm saying, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Smitherman. Councilor Tate Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to commend Melanie Martin on Monday at North Birmingham Neighborhood Meeting where she did call Urban Alchemy to assist someone. And I just want to make some points real quickly here. And I think the mayor made a great point that this is not Hart's issue. And, I can remember, before I left Birmingham, driving around downtown a lot in the firehouse shelter, that little red house on that corner, you would see hundreds of people hanging out on the corners. But I do think, as somebody that do grassroots work, where organizing and I think Councilor Williams said nobody knows what anybody is doing. And you can't drop this in Urban Alchemy's lap or Hart's lap because nobody knows what anybody is doing. And I can say this from working from a nonprofit perspective myself. In the state of Alabama, nonprofit organizations have a tendency of working very silo. But when people try to offer help or offer suggestions or want to collaborate and move as a collective, it gets rejected. And that's what I've seen, here a lot with this work. And that's just not with Hart, that's just with everything. And then criminalizing people because they are poor, poverty, living in poverty. And if you balloon your jail system, what you gonna get? You're gonna balloon your prisons. As the mayor said, these people are coming back out. So we gonna fix it, but you can't blame this. All of this stuff was happening before you even started moving in this transformative way. I live right across the street from the Salvation Army. I see people go in and out their shelters every day. And I think the mayor worked to get the Sunco in Elena, we worked to get that cleaned up. Also, the place in North Birmingham on Caraway Boulevard, where the mayor found the owner who lived in Washington State, who was she had cancer, Mayor, was suffering from cancer. Now it's a tent right there again. And so when you got people that's dealing with mental illness, drug addiction, I think it's unfair to say that this Oasis is gonna be an open drug market. And I see people making drug transactions that's not unhoused. And then we wanna enforce and criminalize people because they're in these situations. So if Urban Alchemy's contract stated one thing, so it clearly, to me, is a breakdown in communication, because what I'm hearing, nobody, it may be safe for me to say, I don't really know what the firehouse shelter does or One Roof, what they really do. I think it's an opportunity to bring every person that's working in this footprint, as you all are doing in this summit, so people can find out what people are doing and exploring best practices that are working around the country instead of shooting down everything that somebody brings to the forefront. We got to give people a chance, because I could say what's currently has been in Birmingham. I can sit up here and say it's not working, but I'm not going to shoot anybody's organization down when I clearly don't understand. I'm not saying that I don't understand, but I don't know what is it that you are offering, in your organization. So I think it's an opportunity, to bring everybody together so everybody can get on the same cadence and know what somebody is doing. Who is responsible for getting people into permanent housing? I think I've shared, some articles, maybe with the mayor, where I've seen where they've transformed hotels in certain areas, and I think the mayor in Atlanta just did something like that, where you got all of these wraparound services, in that one footprint. But you can't expect the organization to come here and do things that organizations that's been here all along, in my opinion, that haven't done a great job. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor
I
Woodfin.
think your colleague, Councilman Vonson, has a question, but I want to, 2 weeks ago, you had 6 items before you, all dealing with the opioid settlement fund. It was a very rigorous process that we went through with all 6. Legal had to vet all 6 as literally like where the initial funds technically sit, legal department. I want to read something from related to legal. For all 6 touches on prevention, educational component, and treatment resources, all approved uses of opioid funding. Again, prevention, educational, treatment resources, all approved for uses of these funds. All 6, including the Oasis, fit this category. And so I just want to share and remind, I know we're getting into other things related to this topic, but related to what was before you 2 weeks ago. These funds and the use of these funds have been vetted and approved by legal, and the services we want to provide at the Oasis fit the legal definition and category of use of said opioid settlement funds, similar to the other 5 you all approved.
Thank you, Mayor Woodfin. Councilman Bonson.
Thank you, Madam President. So, I have some remarks that really mirror some of what Councilor Tate said, Pro Tem Tate, Councilor Williams, Councilor Smitherman. It's challenging to vote when it's difficult to see the full picture. And it looks like there are some elements here that do appear to be a reasonable solution in terms of what this is, high level. But we understand this is challenging work, and there are some questions for clarity. For me, for one, and maybe again, this is me being the newbie, but I want to make sure I fully understand the relationship between heart and what Heart does, and Urban Alchemy and what Urban Alchemy does. So that would be my first question, is just making sure I understand the full delineation of and scope there. Sorry to make you get up again.
No worries. So Urban Alchemy is, and they may want to tag onto this, but Urban Alchemy is the umbrella organization, and they have a caveat of services. And this would just be another tool in the tool belt that we're opting, but there are other programs that they do have as well. So Heart is one, and then the OS is one, but they have a love team, and they actually do have some micro shelter villages, which, they have won, they've been a responsive bidder to a different contract with the city as well. So they have a litany of programs, and these are just two that we've contracted with, or looking to contract with.
Thank you. So Urban Alchemy oversees the Heart program and would oversee this program with Oasis. So that leads to my second question is, there was a news article that came out, I think in September, about Urban Alchemy. And I'm just want to make sure I understand and we do our due diligence in understanding sort of what happened in Austin and how, if that would be applicable or is a concern for services here in Birmingham.
So it's my recommendation under 3625A7A3 that we go into executive session to discuss potential litigation.
All right, counselors, our attorney has asked that we go into special session in order to discuss this particular question. Do all agree to go in executive session? Okay, so at this time, we will recess.
Sorry, Madam President.
Did you have other?
I do have some other questions. Maybe we can ask that and then see if it makes sense to go to executive.
Let's be sure we can continue, because you got that one on the table already, okay? If it will lead into any other questions. Give me 1 second. If you allow us. All right, at this time, we will consider to go into executive session. We'll recess for 15 minutes, and we hope to come back by 5 p.m. Thank you. We do have some additional questions, and Counselor Vasa, you have another question?
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple more questions. Ms. Melton, thank you for your time.
And Kim, if we be sure that our guests from Urban Alchemy can hear the question, they have been reconnected. Thank you.
So the question I had, is page 12, and just looking at some of the data, and of course, you know, keeping space and grace for human nature, things happen. But looking at page 12, we look at the blue table on the right that says social service activities. The total amount appears to be 2801. You look at the math above that, and those numbers add up closer to about 500.
Thank you so much.
So I guess the question at hand is just making sure as we're looking at data and outcomes, which were requested, and we appreciate the packet, of course. Just wanted to make sure that those numbers are accurate. So the question at hand for this one is that 2801 accurate?
And the question relates to when you add the numbers up, it doesn't look like the math isn't mathing. So it doesn't think it adds up to that, so.
Those on the call, did you hear his question? You're on mute.
Yes, hold on one second, sir. We're having a little trouble hearing you, and I don't know if they can adjust the volume in the back, or if you need to. Go ahead, and we'll see if we can hear you better, because we want to hear your answer. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the math, you absolutely know that the first 6 months and the second 6 months would have been the whole year. So that would be the second, would have been the part of the second 6 months. So the first half would have been that portion, and this would have gave us the total, which would be year to date.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right, that should not be there in that total column.
No, I appreciate that. Just wanted to make sure that question was answered. Secondly, had a question on the anticipated numbers of persons experiencing homelessness that would be served at the Oasis Center on a daily and more long-term basis.
So do we have any idea of what that number may look like, or what your goals are? Thanks.
So after our last meeting, we had some conversation about making sure that we had capacity if we saw anywhere from 75 on a 100 given day. That was on any given day. Those were the numbers that we talked about with the staffing here. We just won't know until we build it, the true number, but we did build in capacity to be able to see that number. And we did kind of base that on the number of calls just that we get around addressing encampments weekly as well.
Thank you, Ms. Melton. So 75 per day?
The
75
capacity
to 100?
Anywhere from 75 to 100, yes, sir.
And then remind me again what we anticipate to be the numbers of people experiencing homelessness chronically throughout the city.
So each month we are around 490 to 505 unsheltered. Some of that's couch surfing and that kind of, that's not people literally on the street, but that's people who may have houses but take advantage of our warming stations because they don't have adequate heat, which technically fits the definition of homelessness.
And Counselor, just to add, this place won't service every unhoused resident in our
Correct.
city. That's not even its intent. What I will say is that, you know, there seems to be some underground communication that exists where people know where to hang and or where services are. So we do believe that communication flow once the Oasis exists. Word will get to it, the opportunity resources that exist there, and then word will get back out in our unhoused community that those opportunities exist for more people to know about it and or come.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So based on the numbers presented, roughly 100 per day for 400 to 500 experiencing per month. So about a quarter of the population experiencing homelessness chronically would be addressed by this Oasis Center. Okay, thank you. And the last question I had relates to the conversation about a full plan and a strategic plan. I would love to see sort of a more broader, over the course of the next year, 3 years, how, these individuals experiencing homelessness, are addressed from City of Birmingham standpoint.
Madam President, to this question,
Yes, Mayor Whiffen.
Councilor Vossa, you and your colleagues, everyone will get it before December 1st. I will add, I think this is important, Ms. Melton, I want to say this in front of you. I want to say this in front of our legal counsel. And I want to say this in front of Urban Alchemy, in front of the entire council. Data is extremely important to this new council as a body. It's going to be important for all 6 organizations. So we don't have the luxury on the administration side to call out one. 6 organizations. So 5 have already received blessing from this council. I want to make sure that on every 30 days, we're giving information for all 6 organizations to this body to make sure they know what everybody is doing who's received this opioid funding settlement with their portion. I think that's critically important.
Thank you, Mayor Whiffen. Dr. O'Quinn?
Yes, so comment and a question. So, just hearing some of my colleagues speak, about their concerns, one of the things that I've noticed over the years that's different now compared to, what people experiencing homelessness, my observation of them in the past is that it seems to me, just my perception is that there's been an increase in the visibility of it, at least. We also, I don't recall, that public spaces like parks being places of encampment. So, probably one of the biggest examples of that currently is George Ward Park, where, I talk to people frequently that you can't go to George Ward Park without, encountering a number of people who are living there, and doing so without proper facilities for it to be a place of habitation. That looks different to me. So that's just an observation I wanted to share. I don't know why we didn't have, people, our encampments in, public spaces in the past that were as visible. I mean, they were around. I remember when I first moved to Birmingham, my wife worked at the Harris Early Learning Center on 14th Street downtown, and we would drive up 14th Street from the south side, and there was a 24/7 camp in what is now known as Railroad Park by the viaduct. There was a bonfire going there every day. So that's different. Anyway, the question that I wanted to ask is that it seems like ages ago now, but we entered into a contract with a consultant a year or two ago, and these are the twin ladies from the Atlanta area. And my understanding is that they were, going to be working on a plan that, gave a overall picture of existing conditions and, recommendations for the city moving forward. I think part of where, our questions and concerns are coming from is just trying to get our head around this issue And knowing how, Heart and Oasis and our other providers and initiatives, how that all fits together to address this issue. So, while we're having this discussion, can we get an update on where that is?
Ms. Melton is going to answer your question, to your observation, COVID. Madam President, to your colleague's question, Dr. O'Quinn, and to everybody, COVID really did change a lot of things. The face of homelessness, the exposure to homelessness was one of them. In every single U.S. Conference of Mayors, anything I've been with where there's been a host of mayors. 2021, since 2021, this has been one of those conversations that's been right up there with public safety. And on the other sandwich, and that's the other bookend, and public safety's here, and the bookend of affordable housing's here. Homelessness is right here square in the middle of a conversation we've been having for 4 years, every quarter. And I will tell you what COVID did to expose the vulnerabilities around housing. That was a change. I think what also changed was, in that change, and I think this is important to note, major urban cores in America usually house all the resources. So, either through voluntarily coming, being put in the back of a police car, being given a bus ticket, being given a paid grade, Amtrak, whatever it is, everybody flood to those areas that provided resources. Birmingham, as it relates to the state of Alabama, is no different. We would be of the entire state where the most unhoused would be, based on the combination of our city's population and based on the amount of service providers and service organizations that exist to help surrounding cities, municipalities, other counties know that. And somehow their residents have come here. So the other part of that post-COVID was, we believe, and Ms. Melton will tell me if I'm wrong, over 60% of the people that are unhoused in our city are not from Birmingham.
What was that percent?
A minimum of 60, but probably over 60 are not from Birmingham. They're not, they literally are not from here. When I say they're from everywhere, at least 25 to 30 of the 67 counties, and then they're from other states as well. Far as New York, as far west as literally Texas, they are from everywhere. They as in our unhoused residents. So I know that was, I don't want to deviate from the question. I want to answer your questions on that organization who peeled back the curtain and was supposed to assist us with our next plan. She's going to answer that. But I think to provide the context of kind of what's happened, it was COVID and the things that have happened post-COVID with the housing crisis in America.
Thank you, Ms. Milton. You were going to answer the question regarding that agency.
Yes, so Juniper and Myrtle were the contractors that we brought in the roadmap that the mayor has mentioned a few times. We took a lot of their recommendations and we put that in the roadmap that we will share with you all. Happy to share those notes as well. But the roadmap took a lot of that into consideration, as well as a lot of the work that's been done over the last 20 years, which is highlighted in the roadmap. We promised Councilor Abbott that we wouldn't reinvent the wheel, and so the roadmap is us keeping that promise.
I apologize, Madam President. I literally just looked at it for the first time yesterday, so.
Okay. So the study, their work is completed at this point? Okay. And that will at some point be shared with us as well? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. O'Quinn. I appreciate you asking that question for clarity, because it does sort of fit things together, where we saw that agency sort of started us with looking at the whole picture and then making recommendations to us. And so I feel like I'm understanding, this is some of the things that led us to these 6 groups that we wanted to spend these funds and allow them to do the work that we feel is needed.
Absolutely.
Okay. I also wanted to entertain other questions. I did want to say, thank you, Mayor Whitman, I was sitting here myself thinking of not so much how we got here, but how in relationship to the city of Birmingham, we've always considered ourselves to be a resilient city. And we've always helped each other, and we've always been willing to help those in need. And I'm glad that you mentioned COVID as being a possible way, and this is upticked to now. You know, you used to travel to what I used to call the big cities. And when you go up north, you would see people sort of living like this. Maybe not the large number of encampments that you see now, but we always sort of felt on the southern end of things, we always sort of took care of our own. But we see with things that are happening, not only due to COVID and things like that, but we see some of the national legislation that's coming down that impacts on people, how they live, how they work, how they are able to cope with things, that we see these services and we see the need for these type services. I also wanted to mention, as a former board member for One Roof, I know it's been more than 5 or 6 years ago that I served on that board, but we have seen an influx in the number of people that you sort of call unhoused, how people are living from sofa to sofa, and they may not be what we think of as a truly person that's homeless, but we've got so many other different ways that we describe or categorize people who are in need of these services. And so as we are thankful for the information that we've received so far, and I just want to be sure, do we have any other questions on this end? Thank you, Councilor Woods. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Few things. One, in terms of what Urban Alchemy is doing, is there any sort of attempt to identify a number of unique individuals served? I know that's probably a difficult thing to do, but is there any where in their kind of interaction and providing services that they're able to track that in any way?
I'll let them speak to that.
Did you all hear that question? Well, let Councilor Woods, you restate it again, just to be sure they.
Just asking, is there any method by which you track unique individuals in the course of serving?
I'm just coming back, I guess, again, yes, thank you. The tracking is
Speak up just a little louder, Artie. Yes.
okay, yeah, the care coordinator is the one that's gonna have the information. I'm tracking individuals who have acute assistance that they're needing. That care coordinator, through the outreach that got today, PS, all the emergency, UAB, medical facilities, to where we've been working on ongoing tracking of these individuals. So yes.
Thank you. Councilor Woods, any other questions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, does that show up in any of the metrics by which y'all report on?
What you see when we presented, we would have to break it down and find detail in addition to that, just to show you specifically what you're requesting, what you're looking for.
Okay. And then two, what's footprint are y'all currently operating in?
Several. I mean, as the mayor mentioned earlier, in all 9 districts, we're consistently having meetings and building and touching footprint as well as traction with other agencies in those districts to support and expand our service work that we're providing.
Currently, they're serving the entire city. Just to piggyback on what Artie said, we're really fortunate in this regard in Birmingham. In every other city, they have a really small local service area, but because of our unsheltered population, it's large to us, relatively small to them, they've been able to service the entire city, which is why we've taken calls from every district.
Yeah, so like I said, excited that we're having more and more of these conversations around this issue. I think I spent a lot of time this summer, telling people I was going to advocate for increasing our spend to actually put boots on the ground and kind of make impact in this space. Was excited to see the summit coming up because I think there are a lot of organizations in the ecosystem that all have good things to say, but it's hard to tell who's actually effective. And so I think we need to, one, be able to know, because I think all in all, I wouldn't say our homeless population is huge or something that we can't figure out a plan to manage. And so understanding in terms of, because I know One Roof pulls down a lot of funds and distributes those, but do want to be in a position to know who's effective in terms of all the organizations across the continuum of care. Because those are organizations we want to support more. We want to be able to advocate for more resources for, find those opportunities for synergy among those groups. I think to Councilor Williams' point, and I'm not fully sure on I think I had an idea. I think I got confused when we started talking about it, but at some point would like to be able to kind of bring those organizations together to understand what they're doing well, what the challenges are, but ultimately, what are you what's the deliverable? What's the actual impact in a way that we can measure that? And so I probably will have more around that whole thing. I don't want to single out urban alchemy for questions I have about the entire homeless ecosystem, but questions specifically that I will be interested in as it relates to, the plan that's forthcoming, urban alchemy, all of the above, but kind of what we're seeing in terms of 311 calls versus responses. And so we've gotten data that they've kind of provided, but being able to understand, overlay that versus the calls we're getting to see, I guess, big picture understanding, what's our gap? Like what does it cost for us to be able to hit all these areas? I think everybody's got several spots they could take you to. But at the same time, understanding people have a right to be on public property, but then balancing that with the concerns of, parents who literally have, unhoused folks that, they're not familiar with, that are in close proximity to their homes and things like that. So those are valid concerns. And then would like to ask for feedback on basically what I'll just call the old hotel model. So say if someone purchased an old hotel, this building with individual rooms, but what it would look like to be able to have transitional housing that delivered all those wraparound services on site. And so all of this stuff that's not especially pertinent to this item, I have to jump into, but things I'm interested in as we go forward.
Well, I'm going to ask Counselor, because I know there are several questions that still are lingering about the entire process. But for today's discussion, we were looking at the item that had come before us that related to urban alchemy. So what I would ask you all, counselors, if we could fill those questions and send those out to Administrator McDaniels, Deputy Administrator McDaniels, and then we'll be able to collate those, and then we'll be able to review them to see if there are other questions out there that may be additional ones into those that you've expressed today as well. And I think, I know LB will have that as part of our minutes. And so, but we'll want to be sure to collate that and get that so that we can get those over to administration so that we can have more discussion. I do look forward to the summit. I think I'd like to have those questions ahead of the summit so that we can give you all some type of guideline of what we'd be looking for as a group from that collective, and to see how we answer this and what's our next steps moving forward, okay?
Thank
All
you.
right. If anyone else has any more questions, I would like to ask that we call for a vote to move this item forward and move it back to the council for consideration.
Before we do that, I also wanted to thank Elena, Ms. Melton, because I will say this. While I might not be for everything we do, the way that you compassionately handle our unhoused, homeless, whatever we want to call people that are less fortunate than we are, really speaks to the amazing person that you are. And I've always admired that in you. So I have tough questions, but what you do is a very humbling and special thing. We can call for the vote now.
Thank you. We have one more question before we do that. Councilor Woods.
Yeah, I would just ask that in the future, if it ever comes up again, if there's an opportunity to listen to Counselor Williams argue with the echo of his own voice, let's just stand back for a moment.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion and a second that we consider moving this item back to the council agenda for consideration.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. So that item goes back. I was waiting on it. I thought we missed it. I knew it was coming. Sorry. Thank you. We do want to thank the mayor, want to thank Urban Alchemy, and of course, Ms. Melton for bringing us this information. Our next item on our agenda is and we had, wrongly we said a mid-year review, but this particular item relates to just updates on our city financials, correct? So I'll turn that over to you, Chief, or the mayor.
Again, good afternoon, council. It's good to see everybody this afternoon. I think this is a topic of not only importance, but one that has been deemed a priority for this council. We're excited to get it before you as it relates to all things related to finances in our enterprise. And so today you'll hear from several teams internally as well as our external team members, those who do our audit and our financial advisors. And Chaz Mitchell will help facilitate the conversation, but at a global level, again, you will get some significant detail in the presentation for the audit for the fiscal year that ended 2024. You get some updates on our general fund, debt reserve fund, grants, Birmingham fund, and other funds as it relates to, and then the financial stability of where we are and some projections too from our financial advisors. So we look forward to this fruitful and very detailed conversation. Chaz, you want to highlight anything before you bring up and introduce those who will let you introduce the next presenter?
Madam President. So the first group that we bring up is Ms. Connie Shepherd-Harris, who is our external auditors. She will give her opinion of the most recent audit for the fiscal year ending 2024. So I'll bring her up and let her introduce herself to the council.
Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Connie Shepherd-Harris. I'm the president of Shepherd-Harris and Associates, and we are located here in Birmingham. I have with me my vice president, and that's Courtney Harris Anderson. Our team was contracted to perform the June 30th, 2024 audit. In this presentation tonight, I would give you an overview. I think you all have a copy of the audit report. It's we call it the ACFR. That stands for Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. But I will give you an overview of that report because it's very intense. It took a lot of work, but I will give you some high points, okay? But the most important page in that report is found on page 1. That's the independent auditor's report. And in that statement from your auditors, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. Also, on that statement on page 1 and 2, I think 1 through 3, you'll see management responsibilities and the auditor's responsibilities. Management responsibility is the preparation of the statements that I'm about to go over tonight. And the auditor's responsibility is to make sure that the statements are fairly stated. There was no, if there were fraud, we will point it out. But this is just a fair presentation of the financial statements that we audited
Madam Auditor, I want to make sure you have alignment with your audience so you don't lose any of them. You have your high level, but when she said page 1 through 3, she was referring to the book, so just when you
Does
switch back and
everyone have a
forth.
copy of
Thank
the
you.
detail?
Yes.
Okay. Glasses, please, okay? First, for the overview. Like I said, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. This presentation is an analysis of the audited financial statement for the activities for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. During the year, the city experienced an operating surplus of approximately $56 million in its general fund. Revenues were approximately $31 million over budget. Business tax collections, including sales, use, business license fees, and occupational taxes, were the main contributors to the surplus. Expenditures for the general fund were $37 million under budget, with savings in salaries, fringes, professional fees, and fleet expenses. Some other financial highlights in the audit report, the total net position of the city of Birmingham increased by $202 million during the past fiscal year, including general fund net change of $56.3 million. The liabilities and deferred inflows of resources of the city exceeded its assets and deferred outflows of resources at June 30th, 24 by $127 million. Now, this was primarily due to the net pension liability. The city's governmental funds report a combined ending fund balance of $745 million as of June 30th, an increase of $112 million from the previous year. Now I will go over a summary of the revenues. For the last 3 years, fiscal year 22, the revenues were about $521 million. Fiscal year 23, the revenues have increased to $543 million. And fiscal year 24, the revenues was a little over $566 million. Of that $566 million for the 24 in the general fund, business taxes led the way with 79% at $450 million, $450 million, a little over $450 million. While your property tax came in a little over $39 million, and your intergovernmental were a little over $19 million, and your charges for service a little over $18 million. We have other revenue collection, your permits, and your fines and fees. I want to go over a little bit more detail of the business tax of that a little over $450 million. In that, leading the way were your sales tax that was over a little over $156 million, which is about 35% of the business taxes. Next was the occupational tax, a little over $121 million. And coming in third was the business license. And then your, I think it's your lease on rental, and then your lodging fees. I wanted to get some comparison of the last 3 years for your top 3 resources of your business taxes. Like I said, 2024, your business tax is a little over $156 million, while 2023 was a little over $145 million, and 2022 was a little over $142 million. So you see that each year, your business taxes increased. Going over your expenses, I want to give some changes from 22, 23, up to 24. The expenses for 2024 was a little over 491 million. 23 was 476 million, and 22 was a 426 million. So as you see, each year your expenses did increase. Leading the way in those in different categories was the personnel services. For 24, your personnel service was a little over 33 million. And in 23, your personnel was 33,501,000. And the personnel services for 23 was a little over 33,432,000. And but in 22 was a little over 25,793,000. So each year your personnel service did increase. In your general fund, I want to go a little bit more detail as far as your general fund expenses, that 491 million that I was talking about. So even though the personnel service was 6 to 8% of that cost, you had other expenses like the contribution to boards and agencies. They contributed about 7%, while your debt service was 6%, professional service 4%, utilities 4%, general administration 3%, fleet service 2%, and you had economic incentives, rental expenses, communication, all of those contributed about 1%. So you had other expenses that contributed to that 491 million. Now, going to your fund balances, the city general fund experienced an increase in fund balance, like I said before, about 56 million. Revenue collection remained consistent with previous years with increases in tax revenue categories such as business tax and bank excise taxes. Overall, revenues were approximately 12 million over your original budget and 17 million over your final budget. And I know that, you know, the budget has to be approved every year, and, you know, it's changed based on what changes that is needed. But I just want to give you an overview of the expenses and what was budgeted. The Birmingham Fund, I'm just going to touch a little on the Birmingham Fund numbers. Where the Birmingham Fund, that fund balance increased approximately 16.5 million. And that was mainly due to a lot of investment income that was earned during the year from that Birmingham Fund. The investment income of approximately 23.4 million exceeded projected expenditures of 1.7 million and transfers out of 5.2 million. So in 2024, that Birmingham Fund was like a little over 117 million, while in 23, it was a little over 100 million, and 22 was like 94 million. So in conclusion, the city is in compliance with required accounting standards. The city's current financial position is strong and it looks good. Now I'm in a position to answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you, councilors. Thank you so much for this information that you've shared so far. Are there any questions? I want to know if anyone has questions about the comprehensive financial report. Dr. O'Quinn.
So all of your statements are relative to June 30th of 2024.
Yes, sir.
When do we expect, Chief, the
25.
CFR for
Yeah, so,
2025?
I got you. So, of course, the fiscal year ended on June 30th of 25. We contracted with another agency to do our audit this year, and they slated to potentially have it completed by the end of this year.
Okay.
Most realistically, keyword was potential. We want to manage expectations here. I think what's realistic is first quarter of 2026.
Another question. So some of this is just me not knowing the jargon, but give me an example of contributions to boards and agencies.
So that would be Transit Authority, the zoo. It's just all.
So they're not contributions, these are contracted services?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, and then for personnel services, that's
That would be.
wages and benefits?
That would be the pension, insurance, and salaries.
Right, okay. Got
Of
it.
course, you know, Sarbanes-Oxley law changed the way pensions are on anybody's book, cities, states, organizations, public-facing organizations, are liabilities now. And that's why the liability number is the way you see it.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one more.
Yes.
So, you know, one of the big issues in the news, you know, the last couple of weeks has been relative to the cost of healthcare. Are we anticipating, you know, the federal, does federal policy impact our insurance rates for our employees?
As you know, the way our insurance is set up, the employer, we absorb a significant cost. And then our employees, they absorb their own costs. What we've attempted to do in the last, was it now, 2 years or 3 years? 36 months or 40, or how many years has it been?
At least for the last 4, like 3.
Minimum of the last 3, we have absorbed all, as the employer, we literally have absorbed all the additional costs for insurance and not putting in that additional cost for the employee. As the employer, how many times has it gone up every year?
Every year.
Every year's gone up. We know what the, I don't even like saying it, big beautiful bill triggered. I think we're all gonna be in for a significant amount of conversations as we go into April and May for the new preparation for the next budget that starts July 1 of next year. What does that do? What those premium costs going up do? Separate from our costs, all right? Premium costs are gonna go up for individuals. We are in a holding pattern to see what happens. Is that fair? To see how much it shocks the system. We don't know. Anything we say today is premature.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Sorry, Madam President.
Yes, that's okay.
I just want to make sure I got because I think I missed it. So the Birmingham Fund increased 16.5 million, and it was due to investment funds of how much?
Okay, let me get back to that slide. Hold on just a second.
I don't have a page. That's why I need her to
So
say it again.
we gave you a
Okay,
Birmingham Fund quarterly
The
report.
Birmingham
I was looking, where is it?
It'll
What
be on
page was
it'll be
it?
on the
Fund
first
balance.
page.
What page?
First page.
It's on the
It's on
first
page
page.
17 of the condensed report.
Yeah. They got it.
Of the,
The Birmingham
They got it.
funds is a little
They got it.
over 117,182. But that report, you might have the wrong
Yeah,
numbers in
so
there.
let me help clarify that. So what Ms. Harris has is as of June 30th, 2024. We gave you one as just as recent of September of 2025.
oh, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right. I was like, that's
okay.
not the same number.
Did you add them up? In this packet? Okay.
Oh, thank you. That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor. Thank you.
And Madam President, just one more question.
Okay. The comment, we got that one. We're missing a page on this packet. Page 16.
Wait a minute, let me get, pardon me?
Let me make sure.
Go to your main audit report.
Which one?
After.
This
Look on
one?
page 11. The
On this
thick
one?
report. Look
The
on
book?
page 11, you'll see the Birmingham
okay.
Fund as that's 117, a little over 117 million. On page 11
Okay.
of your main report,
11 of the
of your
big
main
book.
report. In the body there, you see your fund analysis. And that end right there, the Birmingham Fund is at 117, 182.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Does that answer that portion of the question, Council? or-
Yes, ma'am. And
Okay.
then just
I know
one
you
more.
got others. Go ahead.
Just one more. Where was it? On page 9 of this one.
Okay.
I know, we see, which is good, the business taxes revenue have increased each year. Is that due to the, us being post-pandemic? Why that's increased?
And what?
The increase in the revenue over the last 2022, 23, 24, is that due to us coming out of the pandemic? Why that increased? Do we know why?
Yes, because I think the pandemic, last time I was before you, I said, that was in 23, for the 23 audit, I said, we gotta get comfortable, we gotta come out of COVID. And they have contained costs, and I guess, what our staff did was making sure they did collections properly. But, this is just an overview of what it was, 22, which was right at end of COVID, and which was a little over 142 million. 23 was a little over 145, and 2024 is a little over 156. That's the found on page 9 of the small report.
And Madam President,
Yes, Chief.
yeah, Council Smith, it kind of will segue into our next conversation with the financial overview with, Goodloe. So that will show.
I'm sorry, that's the business tax, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
business
So
tax.
he'll kind of hit on that, on how the trends have shown over the last, I think we had a 10-year graph in that document about how our level up on our business taxes are kind of like leveling off now.
Okay.
I wouldn't say we're hitting a ceiling, but kind of are, to be honest with you.
Can I ask why?
I just think we have done a pretty good job of just promoting restaurants, new businesses coming to the city.
agree.
Things of that nature.
Okay. I wonder if it's related but not related. Just, we still have a lot of empty buildings where a lot of people are still working from home. Also, what does that look like, I guess, reimagining those buildings or trying to encourage more people to come back to work?
And we continue to have conversations. David Fleming recently, it's been less than 30 days, but probably right close to 30 days, put several key stakeholders in a room to talk about what do we do for what do you call it, the commercial space that's not used, how it's reimagined going forward, whether it's for commercial use or repurposed for any other use that works. This is a conversation with several stakeholders, but we got to continue to have this conversation with the commercial owners of these buildings too, of their adaptability and creativity. And then how does the city show up and support that? This is definitely a post-COVID issue as well. There's been some wins, but not as many wins as we want.
Right, because just personal preference, I would love to see more businesses because I've seen the last 5-10 years it's been housing, but it's honestly unaffordable housing, the condos, the apartments, like a lot of people can't live there. So I just hope it would move more towards that instead of.
I think I'm excited about the articles you all have been seeing about how Birmingham's been in the top 5, attracting the next generation of young people post-undergrad or grad school. I think that has to be a part of the leverage of space. As we continue to work around our economic development strategy and job creation, we believe there will be a play as well to leverage and market some of that available commercial space as well.
Yes, because just one last thing, it's just, I've seen a lot of my friends that want to live in Birmingham, but honestly can't afford to, and they're not like, these are people who are doctors, firefighters, they just can't afford to live in Birmingham, even if it's just apartments. Or you see a rotation out of residents, they may be here for 3 years, but then they're gone to the suburbs to live in houses, so I would just like to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. Those are your only questions. Everything? Any other questions? Yes, Counselor Woods.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, my brain is on FY '26. I don't want to try to cram it back into FY '24, but, just to the conversation around, hitting the ceiling or whatnot, I think potentially something to consider is looking at, ensuring people have business licenses. I think there's some opportunities in that space, particularly around like the rental property market, things like that. So throwing it out there.
I saw something that I probably had never seen before. October 25th, it was a cold Saturday morning, and it happened to be something called the Magic City Parade. And I'm just using this as an example, but it was refreshing to see, because I don't think, again, I've never seen it. It's probably been done before, I just never seen it with my own eyes. Because I saw that young lady out there herself with a team of people. I was wondering what they were doing. But, you know, people hold themselves out as entrepreneurs and selling stuff while you have a line of residents sitting or standing on the parade route. And I think they hit every one of them up who didn't have a license right down the spot. Pack up or pay up right now. What I can say is, just using that example, I want to just give some kudos to the finance department for being overly aggressive, making sure, quote, run us our money. That's not a quote. I'm just literally inserting that. Forgive me. But I do think moving away from a past vendor, there's been some course correction. Again, they'll tell us if I'm wrong, and there's still some ironing out to do, but landing the plane and getting it right around our business license. That's keen for us as a priority for this team and the department. It's something we're leaning all the way in on.
But yeah, just, all seriously, I do want to, I guess, continue looking at it and seeing where those opportunities are to kind of create more, efficiency might be the best word, so, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Counselor Vaza.
Thank you, Madam President. Just two relatively easy questions. One is, again, newbie at the table, intergovernmental. I'm curious what that category is.
Yeah. So intergovernmental is just money that we get from the state mostly, bank excise tax, local gas tax, things of that nature. Like, I was sending you a document of everything that kind of expands on that actual one line, so you can understand better.
That's great. Thanks. And really seconding what Councilor Woods said, more so sort of on the business permitting side, some comments I've heard from business owners. It's great to see business tax revenue so high. Perhaps another strategy is working on the sort of efficiencies around the permitting process.
Yeah, as the mayor said, I think we kind of got that corrected and on the right course of collections. Changing the vendor was a big issue, but it's an issue that really helped us in a good way from moving on from the previous vendor to where we are now.
This Chief, just to piggyback on that, I was going to be sure that our new councilors realize we did go through another vendor, and that may have also, I'm sure, it helped us to reap some benefit as far as seeing the revenue generated from better accounting or reporting or taking
Yeah,
that
and
information.
it improved efficiencies and customer service because, people still have the ability to renew online and they can still come to City Hall to do business like a lot of people still like to do, just the human element of it, so.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes,
For occupational tax, the employer collects City of Birmingham occupational tax as part of their payroll if they're being paid or headquartered in the city, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So it's only City of Birmingham, like businesses that have a business license in the city of Birmingham or doing payroll in the city of Birmingham that we collect occupational tax. And does that, so we have a lot of companies that are headquartered here that the employees don't necessarily work here. Are they also?
I don't believe so. I think, you want to answer?
Good evening, everyone. Robert Averhard, I serve as the Deputy Director of Finance. In reference to your question related to occupational tax, really and truly, if a business comes in the city of Birmingham to work and they are working in Birmingham, then there is really an occupational tax to pay. All right? I would say that we are really working hard to get our auditors to begin auditing businesses more. And so that's a part of the process that we're going through to improve and become more efficient. But that is an area that we want to do more auditing of those businesses who are coming in Birmingham, working. There is an occupational tax to pay as well as having a business license.
And that's the in-house auditors.
Right.
That's right.
And it's for so the question was, are the employees, so like, let's just say, for example, Regions. Regions is in a lot of, places. Are employees working at a Regions Bank in Mississippi, they're not paying?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Just the ones that are housed in the
Right.
city limits.
Okay, got it.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Gunn?
Yeah, thank you so much for putting together this report. One of the things that immediately jumped out to me was looking at the property taxes. I see there's a 1% uptick from 2023 to 2024. I want to know if there's what's the correlation for the uptick? Do we know?
Property value can be an element of that, and then just people actually paying their property taxes, and we reconciling it with the county, getting our portion of their property tax in-house.
Okay, got you. And then my second, I guess my second concern was for businesses. When they're not legitimate, is there a procedure in place to help them to become legitimate?
One more time. All right. So again, Robert Averhard, Deputy Director of Finance. As it relates to the business license question, in the event that there are businesses who are just operating and they have not yet come and got a business license, our revenue examiners are tasked with, being in the community. They have districts that they work in, and they are working to identify those businesses. We are able to identify different businesses different ways. Once we identify that business, we do reach out. And we have a business compliant unit that helps and assists with that. If that means visiting that business, asking the question, hey, can we see your business license? We already know they don't have one. So at that point, we go through the educational process and say, hey, this is how you get a business license. We need you to come down today. So that's kind of the process.
And that's, I'm sorry, Madam President.
Go ahead,
And then it's not just for business license, if they owe back taxes, like we will work with that business owner to make sure they're up in good standing, basically. So yeah, we work with all type of business on it. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Do we have other portions?
Yes. So, thank you, Mr. Connie.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Harris. Appreciate it.
So we'll bring up Mr. Goodlow White from Porter White. They'll give us a financial overview and pass out this presentation for you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Goodlow White. I'm the president of Porter White and Company. We're pleased to serve as your municipal advisor to the city of Birmingham. I've seen some of you before, usually when we're issuing bonds or doing other things, or maybe talking pension. Pleased to talk more tonight about the ongoing work that we do with your finance department, really to understand the economic health of the city and do analysis and hopefully answer some of the more forward-looking questions that you've been asking. And so I'm going to go into a review of some of the history. I'm also going to talk a little about 2025, which is history, and then look at some recent rating agencies, because they are really our external evaluators of the city, and looking at their scorecard, go into some of the things that they look at, and certainly happy to take questions either as we go or ongoing. You have a report, I think, this is the book, I see some of you with it. I'm on page 4 right now. This is looking at the last 10 years. And this is ending June. And if you recall COVID, and I think we all do, we shut down in March of 2020. And we experienced most of the economic slowdown then. So you actually see those revenues flatten or decline. And then 2021 was a little better than expected, but what you also see is that yellow bar where you're seeing some government grants or other things going on. And so it's not only the explicit grants you got, but it was the other federal government support that helped people who buy things and pay taxes and do everything else. So it was really that support that you see that marked increase from 21 to 22. And then what I would say is you can certainly see some of that has been pulling back recently, and we're seeing that in the numbers. So some of the question about the changes, the federal government support, it had flowed through and is now ebbing and pulling back out there. So a lot of what we look at is the taxes portion and what is going on in the city in that area. So on next slide 5, this is unaudited, so there's some numbers that I may change eventually, but this is as of June. And really what we're looking at as what is going on with the city's revenues. And so you see sales tax is about half of those business taxes. Occupational tax is 25%. We look very closely at that trend, particularly post-COVID. I've read the statute on that. It's work done within the city, which was one of the questions I think asked. And so if you're licensed to do business in the city and you're working from home, it's the city's position. You're working within the city no matter where you are, because that's where you're licensed to do business. And then business license tax, we've lumped in utilities tax as well, is another 25%. One of the things that you will notice in 2025, 12 months ending, we are comparing it to the prior year. We did notice for the first time since COVID a slight decline in sales tax revenues. Business license tax was a positive, and a lot of that is due to the collection effort and the work of your finance department. Recalling the full history of that, I think the city of Birmingham went online and was able to collect business license tax for the first time right before COVID, and so that was a great thing to have done. And now you have the ability to both do that and have better control over your compliance function. So all in all, a strong performance in 2025 with caveat on sales and use tax.
Question.
Yes.
Does the sales tax revenue include SSUT?
It does.
Okay.
That is a matter that we also look at and are following closely as well, as you might imagine. Page 6, this is sort of the trend in lines. And what you can see is the rate of change. And so the steeper the line, the greater the growth. And you see that in your sales and use tax. You do see that COVID decline and then a bounce back. We're still sort of near a trend line there. Occupational tax has been growing. That's also an area of focus, occupational tax on employees within the city. Knowing who the largest payers of those are, or remitters, we watch that very carefully. Obviously, we have a healthcare focus in the city, and so we're very much tied to that. You notice how business license does increase. Ad valorem tax, one thing that's important to remember is that every 3 years our property taxes go up more in this county, so you're seeing some of those jumps, and you saw that in the audit. And so the rating agencies, by the way, noticed that too and asked the same questions, what's going on, and it's a 3-year revaluation. So that's part of what that is. So moving on to page 7. I think you may have heard in the past, we really don't know how the year is going until we start collecting business license tax, which happens it's due on calendar year revenues, and you start collecting it in January and February. And then by March comes around, you have most of that. And what we're working with your finance department to do is to look at those monthly trends, to see where you're coming out, and to help project the rest of the year. You'll notice this year the red line on your graph, we were getting a little worried in November and December because it was trending below. I think part of that was catch up and internal, but then fortunately caught up with business license tax and some of the good performance there and ended slightly ahead. Part of what the Mayor Council Act has for the finance director is they're supposed to project the end of the year and use that revenue forecast for budgeting purposes. And so we're assisting the staff in doing that. And so if you're curious how that's done, we're really just looking at the current trend as the best estimate. But usually by March, we're pretty good. By April, we're better. And that's where those numbers come in. And so the other part here is the city has gotten high marks from the agencies on being conservative in its financial practices. A budget target, I would say, particularly with sales tax that can be volatile, should not be, oh, we have a 50-50 chance of hitting that. We need to be a little bit better, and you've seen some margin where we've been, the city has been ahead of budget. Some of that, I would say, is uncertainty coming out of COVID. There are literally some big factors that could go either way. And what I would also say is that we're sort of narrowing that gap in that estimate of how much we, based on previous trends. So the principle of conservatism is important. I'm going to move on to talk about the credit rating agencies. I'm on page 9 right now. There was actually some really good news in September. It's big news in our world, in the finance world, to get an upgrade. So that's external validation that you're heading in the right direction. The history of that, I think someone mentioned the accounting change that really had focus on pensions for municipalities. We had 2 ground grades from Moody's and Fitch. Fitch is now upgraded twice, and Moody's has upgraded once, and still working on that trajectory. On page 10, I read their press release very closely. And what you'll see is the upgrade was improvements in the long-term liability, and they include both pay down of debt and as well as the pension portion. And Birmingham is a large and diverse economy. They do point out, and they're not the only ones, the declining population. So that is a focus. And then they also look at us from median household income. Now, in most states that they rate cities, property tax is a very important component of revenues. And so the property tax in the house you can afford is based on median household income. That's not necessarily the similar case for the city of Birmingham or most municipalities in Alabama, because property taxes are very low, and we're more reliant on sales tax, which is and occupational tax, which is based on who works here and shops here, not necessarily who lives here. We're in constant discussions with the agencies about your criteria may not fit the city of Birmingham completely well. If you look on page 11, you see some of that in the 3rd bullet point where, let's just say I couldn't say that better than myself, and certainly the message that we were trying to help them understand based on our non-resident population. They do focus on the pension still, and I'll come back to that. On page 12, the agencies, since the great financial crisis, have tried to be more transparent, and they have these explicit scorecards. And you're seeing a scorecard on page 12 that Moody's has for the city. We score very highly in the economy and the financial performance. Recall that the Birmingham Fund, which you have certain spending policies included in the liquidity of the city. And so that really supports the credit of the city. Where their concerns are in the area of leverage. We have debt, bonds, and warrants outstanding of $600 million as of 2024. But then Moody's does their own calculation of the value, and if you tried to check the number against the audit, it would be different. It would be higher because they use their own discount rate. And so that is an important part of the leverage. And so when you hear leverage, think both pension and bond debt outstanding. Moving on, since I mentioned pensions, some of you may have seen graph 13 before. When the rating agencies look at the reserves of the city, some will remark, well, that's because the pensions weren't funded for a long time. What you'll see obviously in green is that gap was closed, and with the change in law, you're now funding the R&R plan on a 30-year closed amortization basis. And so that is on track, but it is a much higher contribution, but very important. On page 14, we just look at the population trend compared to other major metros in Birmingham. This is something that they focus on quite a bit. Page 15, there a comment or question was made earlier. Unlike the auditors who need to give their report in a very specific way, we try to paint more pictures with numbers. And what we did here is we took census data from 2010 to 2020, and then we aggregated it in a way that you can see all of Birmingham's 99 neighborhoods, and then we added the central business district as well. And so there you can see the trends of what's going on within the city as far as population. You know, I had mentioned this before on slide 16. It's not only the nighttime population, but it's the daytime population. We have 100,000 people who come into the city, consume services, pay occupational tax if they're working, buy things, and hopefully pay sales tax. Where do they come from? That's on slide 17. This is also census data. If we have 175 working jobs, we have 100,000 people coming in from outside the city, so more than half of the workforce doesn't live here. And they come, in some cases, from a long way away. And that transportation component is really important to that. And one of the benefits of Birmingham is we were founded at the crossing of the railroads. We're still a transportation hub. You can still get here from a lot of different locations, and that's just a natural geography. I think there were some comments about office space earlier, slide 18. Some of the knowledge is how much of the Birmingham area, metro area office space is occupied, and you see the trends on this. If you look at the central business district, a lot of this could be the towers. And so it's only capacity has gone down some with the redevelopment, but also just the occupancy. And so that's a trend we care about, because if someone's working there, they're paying occupational tax, they're paying hopefully sales tax and other things. I'm going to skip.
Yes. On that occupied office space, the column on the left is millions of square feet.
Square feet. Occupied, millions of occupied square feet.
Okay. And do you have information on unoccupied?
We do. I focus just on the occupied. So the capacity, yes, I do have the capacity as well.
Okay.
Gets to be a lot of numbers, and I was trying to figure out which ones to emphasize. Our capacity has gone down a little because if we redevelop an office into a hotel condo, then we're going to reduce some of that, particularly in the central business district. I'm going to flip to slide 21, which will be my last slide, and then I've left you with some others. One of the things, we took a project a couple years ago where we took all the revenues in the city and tried to say, okay, where are they occurring? And one of the things I'll say is that, you know, business taxes just should not be in residential neighborhoods, so you shouldn't see those in some residential neighborhoods. But we wanted to understand where they were, in part because if something's changing in the city, where's the money moving around? And so you see that reflected here on this, this chart. And in the appendix, we left you, and I'm not going to go through it all, with a number of other, the demographic and other type of economic analysis that we look at to try to help inform, you know, how are the revenues doing now, expectations for the rest of the year, and things like that. So I'm happy to take any questions on this or anything I went through.
Thank you so much for this presentation. Let me see if councilors do have any questions regarding what's been presented. Okay. I did have one question related to page 21. When you said the total business tax, these are neighborhoods that paid greater than 3 million in business tax, or?
Well, yeah, business located in.
In
them.
those neighborhoods,
We
correct.
highlighted, yes, so clearly the central business district, 5 points, but this would include occupational tax, ad valorem tax, in addition to the others, and sales tax. And so, for example, the Summit, that's in Overton. So we expect that, and so is the Colonnade.
Well, of course, District 7, I just saw Oxmoor, so I was looking at that reference, so thank
Very
you.
important.
And the other item I had, when we talked about property taxes, and we talked about the revenue that's generated from that, does it have any relationship to the number of people that are exempted from paying tax due to their age? You know, if you get over a certain age, you don't have to pay. Does that have any relevance?
Yes, so we're looking at collections, and once you reach a certain age, you are
Correct.
either exempt or at a lower rate.
Okay, thank you. And do we care about any trends like that as our population ages? Or is it because we get so much on the business side and other things, occupational tax and business, that it sort of levels out? We expect that number to be a little lower.
So yes, we care, and I think it's a good point, because the older your population, and as people get older, they tend to spend less. And they're not working and paying occupational tax either. Hopefully they're retired, right, when they're older.
You made me smile because I would say, well, kind of, sort of, that's right. Okay,
Madam President,
yes, sir.
I kind of want to add on to some stuff that you talk about with property taxes, because it's a thing that we've been in conversation with Goodloe in the finance department about some things that we learned with our debt reserve fund when it comes to millage. Goodloe, you want to hit on that about the potential of what we're able to do with some debt reserve funds that are tied into property tax that we can do for schools?
Right. Okay, let me see if I can go from memory here.
Education, I apologize.
There is these are all city taxes. There's 7 mills. When we talk ad valorem tax, and you see that in the general fund, that is the 7 mills. Hopefully my colleague will help me. There is 2.2 mills. There's an 11 point.
For the purpose of this conversation, it's 12 mills.
Yeah, come on.
For the purpose of this conversation with the bond reserve fund, it is 12 mills total of ad valorem taxes that are dedicated solely to bond proceeds. 2.8 mills are for public school building purposes. Keep in mind, this is a city tax, and then the remaining 9.2 mills is city bonds.
All right, so when you see bond reserve, those tax revenues are going into the bond reserves and paying debt service of bonds that were voted on by the people. The last one, 1999.
So can you keep explaining to them, one, when you say for educational purposes, how broad that is, 1, and 2, this is not just money we can give to the school system, and 3, the various things we can use it for. I think it's going to be important that the council and the general public understand how these funds can be used, who can use them.
And so there are school taxes, right, components of that. We're not talking about those. These are city taxes. This is a copy of the bond referendum going back to 1999. And of that 2.8 mills, it said it's been issued and approved the tax for public school building purposes. So instead of designating this to pay bonds for anything within the city, it was restricted for public school building purposes. Those are the actual words. So it's a city tax pledge for that purpose. And we've had a number of discussions, because what has happened is there's constitutional amendment that if we've paid all our bond debt service, we can use funds in the bond debt reserve fund, including excess tax proceeds, to pay warrant debt service or to pay projects such as these. And so it's been the recommendation that if there was a project, and I think there are some public school building purposes, that we have segmented the bond reserve account, and this is important, into things that are city general and restricted for public school building purposes. And that's analysis looking at all the tax revenues over the last years. The bonds were issued, some were for general civic purposes and some were for school purposes. And so we have to keep track of all that. And there's, and you'll notice a transfer this year in the budget. Some of that is helping to pay for warrant debt service, but there's also the opportunity to use funds, a portion of the debt reserve fund that was voted for public school building purposes for projects like that.
Can you tell them how much is in the fund?
The fund we're referring to is on page 21 of your full audit report, the debt reserve fund. As fiscal year 24, it was $115,427,000 total.
And how much is school related?
What page?
21 of your audit report.
And let's just say half and half, roughly city, public school building purposes. So we looked at the collections of the 2.8 mils over time and what debt service it paid. And at the end of 24, since we're using that, there was 51 million of that amount that was available for public school building purposes. So, for example, I guess you could go out and do another bond referendum or something like that, and that's what had been done in the past. But because of changes in sales tax and the capital needs of the schools, I think have been covered more through sales tax, if I recall. There hasn't been the need to do that since 1999. So there are these funds. They're not broken out in your audit report. We've calculated that and are mindful of what can be used for what. All the warrants, by the way, of the city are general warrants. The bonds are the ones that have general city and school related. That's what.
It is your recommendation, on one hand, as restricted as it is, that we spend down some of this?
I think that, you know, we have these revenues to invest wisely, and that's what all of y'all are talking about and doing. So I think it's important. What I would say is, if I go back to my rating agency hat, we have reserves. Some of them are restricted, Birmingham Fund, certain restrictions. This debt reserve, bond debt reserve that we really hadn't looked at until the constitutional amendment has restrictions. Pay warrant debt service, or in this case, public school building purposes. So it is funds that are available to invest in that. And I guess this tax, I'm going to say is in effect for 30 years probably. So we have a little while to go.
Say the last question, because I want to make sure we all have clarity, because I still have questions too. When we say public school buildings, education, is that isolated just to buildings at Birmingham City School System, or is more broad than that?
It does not restrict it. So we've had a lot of discussions with bond counsel and your team about what is a public school building purpose. And the path that was recommended by council is come up with a list of projects. There have been discussions. Let me just say playing fields. Very clearly a public school building purpose. All schools have playing fields. You don't think of that as a building, but that's part of their capital. But then there are others that are looking at where the recommendation is let's basically go get the courts to bless it like we do a lot of different things. You would need, our recommendation would be a line of credit to have standby to start these and go through that once approved, then go through a court process to confirm that yes, these projects are public school building purposes. And that's sort of the process. That's about a 90-day process. So that would be the recommendation, because then at that point, and we've done this for economic development reasons. I think the 2020Cs had this process, if you think of that issuance. And that basically says, you know, to get it blessed by the courts. And so that's been the recommendation of outside counsel. I'm not the lawyer, but we talk a lot with them.
Thank you. Counselor Woods, did you have a follow-up or?
Yeah, I just wanted you to clarify where this was reflected. I heard you mention a page number in the 24 audit book.
Page 21 of the audit report.
Okay. And what line item are you referencing?
It is column that says debt reserve. Top line item will say 49 million in tax revenue.
So that 49 million is not broken out between city and school purposes.
What page number?
21.
In the
It
big
has a
book.
lot of numbers.
Oh, I think that's a little different from what we're looking at.
Do I have the same one?
Yeah,
Okay, I got you.
do you see it?
Yeah.
Why it looks different from here?
No, it's just,
Any other questions? Yes, Counselor Vasa, and then I'll get you Counselor Gunn.
Yes, curious to see what the general sort of best practice is for what the reserve amount should be in comp to the total government funds or the general fund?
Sure. Let's go to slide 12. So I think council has a policy that is 20% or roughly 3 months. What you'll see that the liquidity or available fund balance ratio for the AAA level is greater than 40% or greater than 35%. But you'll also notice right to the right there that the AA median city is much higher than that, so 54% or 75. So you are clearly above that level, but you also have the Birmingham Fund and you have this debt reserve fund that have different levels of restrictions on them.
Madam President, I kind of just want to add some more to that for council since he's new.
Okay.
For the general fund, that policy, because you see that we have a very large general fund, especially when it comes to the fund balance. So the reason behind having that debt reserve or that policy to keep at least 2 to 3 months of just cash on hand, that's really just in case something actually happens and we need to tap into that. So anything above that dedicated amount, we can kind of use for any other purposes outside of just emergency needs. So let's say we have another COVID and we may need to tap into our fund balance or our Birmingham fund. So that's why we have those type of policies in place.
And Councilor, I'd also say because of our reliance on sales tax, which is considered more volatile, our numbers might expect to be a little higher than average for the average U.S. cities.
That's why we're very conservative with our budgetary numbers.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Gunn.
Yeah, hopefully this is a simple question. I'm looking at page 26 and the neighborhoods that pay greater than $1 million in sales tax. I'm looking for Woodline. I know the airport authority is in Woodline. Does the airport collect sales tax?
No. They're a quasi-government entity, so they don't.
Good question. Good question. Anything else? I think you had one more, Counselor Woods.
Yeah, I just want to ask, was there a narrative around, I want to say, the sales and use tax decrease?
Just be honest with me.
So I think inflation is part of that. In the early part, you see when prices go up and if people are buying the same thing, then sales go up and revenues go up. But if you work through your reserves as a household and you learn to pay less, and so I think it's partly economic headwinds and partly where we are in that cycle. And so I think a lot about that question. That may not be the best answer, but you know, other cities in our state are experiencing that. Others have different exposure to, is it online sales tax, for example? Is there something there? For Birmingham, I don't think that's as big of an issue as it is in other areas. But I think it is, for the same reason it took off post-COVID, was a lot of the government, the federal government money and incentives coming in. They worked their way through our revenue base, and that has come out. And I think we're also, inflation is tough. And I think coming off that may have sapped some resources and spending. We try to look at the major shopping centers. And so if you think of the cycle of major shopping centers in our greater metro, Galleria, Summit, Leeds, you know, those are big events when they open, and that wouldn't be the explanation here. So I think it's more coming from the general economy and maybe some of the softness. And if we look at the dichotomy in the greater macroeconomy, there is AI and data center spending and that type, and then there's the rest. And we're not capturing, I think, a lot of the AI boom, and, well, you don't capture, I think, under Alabama law, revenues from that.
So I guess what we're seeing is that decrease kind of spread over different industries, or are we seeing that?
Yes, so sales tax is just going to be, you know, traditional purchases. So, I mean, that can be business purposes. Does this include use tax? Yes. So, capital spending, use tax is much more volatile based on projects. Sales tax, you know, we see, you know, there's Christmas bumps and certain other things we expect. But in general, a softening.
In general, what?
A softening.
Oh, so.
And so am I surprised that sales tax is down? The answer is no.
I'll ask this to, I don't want to mess up a title.
Just say chief.
Okay, still say chief? All right, bet, chief. Chief. I guess our fancy new software, would it be able to kind of like run some analysis in terms, say like zoom back out to say the COVID, restaurant sales tax went down, but then things like Home Depot, Lowe's, because everybody decided to do a project, kind of went up. And I remember like hotels stayed steady for some kind of way, but are we able to kind of dial down to see that type of granular detail on like specifically where?
And I could be misspeaking, and Diana can correct me, but I think we can look at based off the Nexus codes, depending on like restaurants. I think we may can drill down, but let us look into that. I see what you're saying, and just let us figure that out.
Yeah, you want.
Until you log in, I want to manage expectations. Another 3 months from now, you said you was gonna get us some data, we won't have it yet.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much for this report. I know we've gained a lot of information that really helps us as we go through and just try to be good fiscal agents or responsible agents for what we're doing, how we're voting this money up and down. So thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
To you and your colleagues, you all have been very, very kind with your time today. A lot of information, both topics, both important, different topics, but the global enterprise, I think it was something that you all have been wanting to get before you. We've been wanting to get it before you as well, and happy we were able to do it 2 weeks into the new administration. So, I mean, two weeks into the new city council. So, we'll be following up with leadership as well as you all individually about some of the information you've heard today and
All right.
possibilities.
Thank you very much, and we'll follow up with all the questions or information that we were asking as part of both presentations. Thank you all so much, appreciate it. Counselors, we did have old and new business, and the only thing I have under the old and new business, I did want to be sure that you had received a copy of the committee assignments, which now includes the time. and location of the recurring meetings. So I'll just let you review that, and then I'll come back to you and ask you for feedback on that. But it's just to be sure that you got that in front of you. And I believe at least one or two committees, I just need to talk with those chairs and just to follow up with them. All right, at this time, we'll entertain an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you.